it's going to take all of us to do this. And the way that Vision Zero is approaching safety on our roadways now is called a safe systems approach. We know there will always be crashes, but the Vision Zero program strives to lessen the severity of those crashes. So as Alana said, people can get home to their loved ones. And in order to do this, all parts of the system must be strengthened. And this goes from better manufactured vehicles to improved road design, updated policies, and to our own behavior. I've been working on several Vision Zero plans across the nation, and I can tell you it's fundamentally changed my driving, walking, and bicycling behavior. So there's no one solution to all of this. A successful program must bring together engineers, public health professionals, educators, law enforcement, first responders, and our community leaders. So is it possible to achieve Vision Zero? Next slide. So it feels like zero deaths is an impossible feat, and an aspirational goal, but happy to report that in 2019, Oslo, Norway achieved 0 pedestrian and bicycle deaths, and they only had 1 vehicle death. So it can be done. So how do we get there? Next slide. So today we're essentially kicking off the development of the Vision Zero Action Plan, which will be the blueprint to move towards 0 deaths and severe injuries. The action plan will present the data and identify trends and the highest area of concern. It will outline realistic and achievable actions that respond to the data. And because it's a safe systems approach, the actions will encompass a combination of engineering solutions, policy changes, enforcement, and educational outreach, all through a lens of equity. We want to make sure that we're reaching all modes and all people. And finally, performance metrics will be identified to measure progress. This is important because we want to answer the question, are we moving the needle in the right direction with our actions? So we're going to set targets, we're going to monitor those, we're going to measure those and monitor them and report back and adjust as needed. So what are other cities doing in their action plans? There's a lot to learn from other cities who have already developed and implemented some action plans. They're prioritizing investments where they're needed most. It's because the data tells us a story, and then we can really focus in where it's needed the most. It's also important to do something. A lot of cities, when they first started doing action plans, all the projects were big and long and hard to achieve. We've learned it's important to find those quick wins, those lower cost projects that build momentum, where we start to achieve some success and keep working towards those longer term projects at the same time. Managing speeds is a core tenet of Vision Zero, and you have to manage speeds through a combination of road design, education. A lot of communities are going towards automated speed enforcement cameras, fairly controversial, but there's a lot of data out there that they work, and also implementing traffic calming. And finally, really focusing on improving pedestrian and bicycle facilities and associated lighting. We want to make our most vulnerable users more visible. So how do we get there? All of the successful Vision Zero plans have some key things in progress, and it begins with leadership, a champion at the agency level. Thank you, Mayor Castor, for introducing this and being that champion. We know we can't stop crashes. We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes, but we all have the right to get home to our destinations, regardless of how we travel or where we live. So to do that, there has to be a balance between getting people to places as fast as they can. There's a culture that wants to get on the freeway. We want to get to work as quickly as we can. We want to get home as quickly as we can, but we need to start focusing more on safety. And what the data tells us is engineering is our first line of defense. We need to do better road designs to get everyone there safely so that if we do make a mistake, the roadways are more forgiving. And finally, for a successful program, it's important to recognize that this is a cultural shift. We all have to change the way we think, and this takes time and it takes commitment. If you go back to Norway, they started in the 80s, but they didn't really get to 0 deaths until 2019. And as an example of this cultural shift, for a moment, just remember that we think of traffic deaths as a normal part of driving on our roadways. It just sort of happens, they're accidents. Yet we're not willing to accept a plane crash as an accident. Planes don't have accidents, they crash. And a crash is something we all want to avoid. And if there's a crash, we expect answers and solutions. So Vision Zero should do the same, sets us up to do the same. We want answers and solutions for our fatal and severe crashes on our roadways. So this is where the task force comes in, and I will turn it back to Alana.
All right, thank you, Wendy. So now I'm going to share an overview of our Vision Zero task force and the role in developing our action plan. Next slide. So you're here today because you're an integral part of this Vision Zero effort. Like Mayor Castor said, this isn't just a mobility department effort or a TPD enforcement effort or an education campaign, but all of us have a role to play in this. You represent your departments and agencies and communities and are going to help us add context to our crash data. So understanding, what the factors are at play, things that we need to be aware of, identify some strategic actions we can take that go into our action plan, and then also help us champion the implementation of the action plan that you all help to create. So again, we can't do this alone or in siloed efforts. It takes us having a collaborative approach. Next slide. And this is our overview of our task force. So we have this group organized around 3 committees with a leadership team and Mayor Castor at the helm helping guide this effort. So we have our first committee is our City Policy and Program Committee. That group will really be digging into what are some of the internal things at the city we can change regarding policies or processes or practices that we have in place. And think a little along the lines of culture change. And that will be chaired by our Chief of Staff, John Bennett. Our second committee is our Crash Analysis and Countermeasures Committee, chaired by Vic Bide, our Mobility Department Director. That group is going to dig into what our crash data is saying. It brings together both our enforcement and engineering perspectives and some of our agency partners like FDOT and the county, HART, our school board, and others who all have a role and stake in this. So kind of a coordinated effort between engineering and enforcement in that group. And then our third committee will be chaired by Osea Wynn, our Neighborhood and Community Affairs Administrator. And that will be focused on equity and engagement. So how we are equitably engaging with our communities, equitably providing and prioritizing projects with our communities, and really bringing that equity piece to the forefront of this effort. Overall, we're just asking you for a 4-meeting commitment over the next 6 to 8 months. These committee meetings will be engaging and action-packed, and our consultants will help facilitate and guide those conversations. But we do expect you all to be actively participating in the meetings. Again, we need to hear from you all, and you all have a say in what we put into our action plan. We want you to share your ideas and have a sense of ownership in this because, again, we can't do this alone. Next slide. And just a quick overview of our timeline. So we're here in February with our kickoff meeting. Over the next few months, we'll have our committee meetings. And then by the end of summer, we should have a draft action plan in place. Late summer, early fall, we'll be sharing that with you all for your feedback and comments and have a final action plan by then. And then before the end of the year, we'll be implementing what we are putting into this action plan. Next slide. All right, so we're going to pause and want to hear from you all. So what do you think is the biggest challenge we face in reaching our Vision Zero goal? And again, you can either log in through your web browser at pollev.com/Kittleson2020 or text to the number 22333, the word Kittleson 2020, and that will get you logged into the system. We already got some answers rolling in. Funding and equity, speeding, funding, speed. See some themes here already. Money, funding, recalibrating the expectations of the motoring public. I like that. Funding to redesign our roads and more funding, road design in particular, and retrofitting our roadways. More of the funding piece of it. Balancing our resources to do everything we need to do. Community dedication. And reducing single occupant vehicle dependence. That ties to our sustainability goals as well. Public buy-in and education and public support. Centering underserved communities in this effort. So that equity piece of it. Changing driver behavior, funding and speed. Those big fast roads we have. Drivers. Culture shift. More public transit. Right-of-way constraints are another challenge. And again, that funding piece. Making driving more expensive. So again, to that single occupant vehicle note we had. Associating dangerous driving with human life. So the human aspect of it. Drivers, active transportation for shorter trips. So people living within a mile of a grocery store maybe consider walking there. Shifting existing culture, population influx. Yes, we are growing very rapidly. So how do we handle that in a safe way? Narrow focus of drivers and communication platform. Need more crosswalks and changing behaviors. Wow, this is really good feedback. Reducing lane numbers and size. Automated enforcement. Mental illness and substance abuse. Most subsidies go toward car trips, providing mobility options. All right, these are great ideas, and we'll continue gathering these thoughts from you guys as we get into more of our committee meetings. So I'll pause there and let Wendy take it back over, and she's going to share some information from our crash analysis now.
And go ahead and go to the next one, Reva. Thank you. So we've talked a lot about this being data-driven. So important because you can only measure what matters, and if we don't have data, we can't measure it. So to begin addressing the fatal and severe crashes, it's important to really understand what's going on. We're going to identify the problem, we're going to implement a solution, and then we're going to see if it's effective. So today, I'm only going to focus on the most concerning trends for fatal and severe crashes. If you want to dig deeper into the data, you're going to have to show up to the committee meetings, and we'll have pages and pages of data. We'll have it all mapped, and we can get down into the details and really start to understand what's going on. But we're limited on time today, so I'm going to be really high level. So what we're going to look at quickly today is who is involved, why are these crashes happening, and what were the contributing factors? Again, these are the big picture trends. So who? No surprise, people walking are the most vulnerable roadway users. They represent only 3% of the mode share. They're the fewest people actually out on the roadways, yet they represent 39% of the fatal and severe crashes. Bicyclists and motorcycles are also overrepresented in the crashes and would be considered some of our most vulnerable users. So this is actually reflecting a nationwide trend. It's true on every Vision Zero project that I've worked on. Pedestrians are dying and getting severely injured at a higher rate than others. And nationwide, there was a 3% increase in the number of pedestrians killed. It's been the most deaths since 1990. So digging a little deeper into the data, the next slide. we want to kind of get a little deeper into the data to help us better target solutions. So of the people walking, people who are 56 to 75 years old represented 56% of the fatal and severe pedestrian crashes. 56%. So as we're thinking about strategies and actions, this is a good place to start looking at this age group and seeing what we can do. If we move on to bikes, it's people who are under 25 years old who are getting killed and fatally injured, or not fatally injured, just severely injured. They represent 74%. So again, really our youth, another area to look at when we start targeting actions. And then moving on to drivers, no surprise, it's the new drivers. It's the inexperienced drivers, 16 to 25-year-olds. They represent about 20% of the fatal and severe crashes. So if you dig deeper into this data on a nationwide level, you're also going to find that of those 16 to 25-year-old young drivers, they're also mostly young men. Just more risk-taking behavior at that age group. So as the task force committees come together and we look at the who, we want to think about what we can do to reverse the trends for these most vulnerable users and age groups. So then we move on to where. And this is fairly interesting when we start to put this in the nationwide perspective too. So most of the fatal and severe crashes for all modes are happening in dark lighted conditions. That means there's some kind of a street light, pedestrian light. It's especially true for pedestrians. 60% of the fatal and severe pedestrian crashes in the city of Tampa were during dark lighted conditions. So there was actually a study on this nationwide between 2010 and 2017, and they found that the annual nighttime pedestrian and bicyclist deaths climbed by 46%. Then the daytime fatalities also rose, but only by 15%. So additional research, they were trying to figure out what was happening, said part of it's attributed to distracted driving. It's worse at night because your reaction time is even less because you simply can't see as far. So distracted driving is partly to blame for this increase. And also drivers tend to not expect pedestrians after dark, so they're not quite as attentive. And then if the lighting is inadequate, it's just hard for drivers to see pedestrians and bikes. A lot of the older lighting just illuminates their heads and not their whole bodies, so it's a little bit trickier to see them. So where? No surprise here, it's wide, fast roads. 50% of fatal and severe crashes are on roadways that have a posted speed limit of 40 miles per hour or greater. And unfortunately, it's basic physics. Speed kills. Every Vision Zero program is looking at managing speed. And of the total network analyzed, all of the fatal and severe crashes are only happening on 24% of the network. And that includes city, county, and FDOT roads. So we can focus investments and countermeasures and solutions on this 24% of the roadway network and really start making a difference. So where, unfortunately, this also follows a national trend. Communities of concern are seeing a higher rate of fatal and severe crashes. And we identified the communities of concern of having two or more of the following characteristics. They were minority, low income, elderly, limited English proficiency, a disability, or simply didn't own a car. And because people in these areas are less likely to own a vehicle, they're more likely to walk, bike, or take the bus to get around. So we really do have to focus on this equitable investment to make sure that as we develop solutions, we're reaching all of the different parts of the city. And why, I saw a couple of chat questions pop up on this one. We have to talk about behaviors. For the city of Tampa, the top 3 significant contributors to fatal and severe crashes include speeding and aggressive driving, intoxication, and distracted driving. So what's a little bit interesting is there have been some studies on these behaviors since COVID-19 hit. So the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration released a report on driving habits, and they did it from March to September 2020, and they compared it to the same period in 2019. So there are fewer drivers on our roads during this time period, but a larger share engaged in risky behaviors. And deaths increased by 4.6% compared to the same period in 2019. Most of the injured drivers had drugs or alcohol in their system, 2/3 of them. And speeding surged. Average speeds during the first part of COVID increased by 22% on urban and rural roads. And they also noted that there was a greater differentiation between speeds. So you had some people going really fast, some people driving the speed limit, and that results in a higher likelihood of getting into crashes. And all of this is exacerbated by distracted driving. I have worked on a lot of Vision Zero plans. I've talked to a lot of law enforcement and first responders, and distracted driving is extremely underreported. You can imagine if you're a police officer showing up at a scene, you don't know if that driver was distracted. If the driver is able to communicate, they're not going to tell you they were distracted. And if it's a fatal injury, you just don't know. So distracted driving nationwide is known to be a huge problem, and it's anything that takes the driver's attention off the road. It's talking or texting on cell phones. Latest research says it doesn't matter if you're hands-free or if you're actually holding the cell phone. It's equally dangerous. It's people and their pets, it's eating, and with our new safer vehicles also come a lot more gadgets which take people's eyes off the road. So distracted driving continues to be a huge issue. So now that you've heard the most concerning trends, it's important to also recognize all the great work that the City of Tampa and their planning partners have already accomplished and can continue to do to improve safety. So I will turn it back over to Alana.
All right. Thank you, Wendy, for that really great summary and overview. And just to let everyone know, we're going to continue doing our crash analysis, and now we are in the process of developing and identifying our high injury network. So where those severe crashes that result in fatalities or severe injuries are happening most frequently, so we can start to prioritize where to focus our resources. But like Wendy mentioned, we have done so much here at the city. We've got some great projects and programs that we've started, crosswalks to classrooms. We do have a speed limit reduction program, some all-way stop signs that we're rolling out as more of a cheaper, quicker way to address traffic calming. And these are just the things that our mobility department is doing. I know our officers and TPD also have some really great successful programs. We have some great educational programs, and our communications and marketing team are wonderful. We know our agency partners are doing so much too, but this effort is all about bringing all of those different efforts together, and how can we more strategically address this topic in a collaborative way, and doing so with our communities informing us as well. Next slide. So we've got another polling question to hear from you guys. So we want to hear, what are some things that we should include in this Vision Zero action plan? What are some ideas that you have? How can we do things differently? In what ways can we more strategically work together, whether across city departments or between city and other agencies or with our community? So we want to hear your ideas here, and this will be pulled into our future committee meetings. All these responses that you guys are sharing with us will help inform how we go about our next committee meetings. So we've got one response already: federal and state funds for electronic speed enforcement. Changing signs from speed limit to max speed. Interesting. taking back roads from the county, referencing particularly Bay to Bay. New and additional funding sources, walking and bicycle training at all levels in public schools. City of Tampa and Employee Speakers Group for community outreach. Very cool. Focusing on our speed management and traffic calming, empowering our neighborhoods, prioritizing funding that protects vulnerable users in our underserved neighborhoods. Education, speed limits, community partnerships in all areas of the community. Agency outreach on vehicle fleets and operators. Adding vertical separators to painted bike lanes. Okay. Focusing on state and county roads where most of the fatalities happen. Additional measures for vehicles, speed management. Safe routes program that includes schools and other destinations, okay. More law enforcement presence and more funding for that. Connected safe bike routes for people. No more widening roads and speed management. How we talk about the deaths of people walking and bicycling, that human aspect of it. Low cost strategies that we can do in a more quick way. Enforcement of drivers yielding at crosswalks. Removing lanes from overcapacity roads, so road diets. More automated enforcement ideas. Community-friendly mechanism for, oh, that one went off the screen. All right, speed enforcement cameras. Operational changes, so we have some leading pedestrian intervals that we have throughout downtown and coordinating signals to slow speeds. Working on some legislative actions. Safer, comfortable bike and microtransit facilities. Wayfinding specifically for kids, that's cool. Ways for community members to report their concerns more easily. And public-facing data dashboards, so public can see where we're at and tracking. Okay, those are really great ideas. More pavement markings. Removing enforcement since it disproportionately impacts low-income people of color, or maybe rethinking what enforcement means.
There's a lot of research that if we design our roads better, it requires less enforcement, which is good for everybody. So there's a lot of talk about equity and enforcement, and if we can free up our officers to do other things, that's a win-win.
All right, we'll go ahead and close that out, and we'll have again an open discussion at the end of this, if in case anyone has additional ideas they wanted to share. But I do want to just let you know what to expect next. So we'll be scheduling our first committee meetings to happen more likely late March, early April, just given scheduling and everyone's super busy. Those committee meetings will again break out into these smaller groups so we can actually have more facilitated conversations rather than this just virtual on-screen dialogue that we're having. So we'll dig into more of the crash analysis that we have, share and summarize the findings and the ideas that we've gotten from you guys today, and build off of that to start identifying those action strategies we put into our action plan. We'll have our third meeting more likely late April, early May, and that will be finalizing our action items. And then we'll be shooting for our final full task force meeting towards the end of the summer, and that will be reviewing our draft action plan. So again, before the end of the year, we will have that final action plan in place that we will be implementing. So this is it's a quick turnaround, it's a fast pace, but we wanted to design it that way so that we're keeping everyone engaged and keeping things moving along. And next slide. And I just wanted to also make sure you all were aware of our mobility plan. So the Vision Zero action plan is a key component of our larger citywide mobility plan, which we're also in the process of developing right now. We just kicked off a very large public engagement effort that's going to inform that citywide mobility plan, but also this Vision Zero action plan. So we're having what we're calling Listen First meetings all across the city over the next 10 weeks. We had our first one last night. They are in a virtual format right now. Just due to the pandemic, we can't gather a whole bunch of people in one room, but we did have a pretty good turnout last night. I think almost 50 people came. And the point of those meetings is to share what we do in our mobility department, what our planning department is doing, and kind of map out that plan for how we grow over the next 30 years. We also have a public engagement platform. So you can visit it right now at www.tpamoves.org. And there you can learn more about our mobility plan, the Vision Zero action plan, and complete some surveys. You can register so you can get updates, because we will be continually updating this website as we go along. So we're trying to hear from the community in as much ways as we possibly can through this effort as well. All right, and with that, you can go to the next slide. So if anyone has questions or comments or wants to share initial thoughts or ideas, we'd love to hear them. We do want to open it up for some dialogue if people are interested. So we do ask that you either use your raise hand function so we can kind of call on people in a more orderly fashion, or you can type your questions in the chat box and we'll respond to them that way. So just wanted to open the floor. And Wendy, if you had anything you wanted to share before we open that up, please do.
Well, I just noticed there was a comment about fleets, and a lot of Vision Zero programs do start with kind of internal education on the Vision Zero program and some training for all of their fleets and their drivers to help with that educational and that cultural shift.
Looks like I saw Gina raised her hand. Gina, do you want to share your comment?
I do. I just wanted to tell you how excited I am about this. I'm really looking forward to getting with my group and meeting Osea and the rest of the people on the task force that I'm part of. I think this is exciting and we can do some really great things together. So that's all. I can look forward to whenever we get a chance to meet.
Thanks so much, Gina. And Gina's really been spearheading this effort. She's from our MPO. For those of you who aren't familiar with her, she's been spearheading this Vision Zero effort for several years, also under the leadership of Beth Alden. So both of them are our Vision Zero champions here locally. All right. Any other comments, questions? It looks like, so Dana entered into the chat, not sure if it was included, but ensuring safe temporary bike ped routes during construction is a must here. So our maintenance of traffic plans. And William Porth, he's been our Vision Zero champion here at the city for many years. He says it's great that we are finally getting started on this super important process. Go team. William and I will be working very closely together on this.
I think one thing to remember too as we all move forward into the committee meetings and what Vision Zero is we all have a tendency, the media, even the way that we all sometimes as professionals talk about crashes, is we blame the victim. And so one of the challenges with pedestrians is they'll often do a mid-block crossing where we have these big super blocks and the signals are a mile away, and maybe the bus stop, they get off on the bus and their other bus stop is right across the street, so they'll dart across the middle of this super block. So instead of victim blaming, as we come up with solutions, we want to understand why bicyclists, pedestrians, or drivers are making risky decisions and what we can do to help them get where they need to be without having to, I guess, not follow the rules correctly. And then also someone mentioned in, how we talk about crashes, the news articles always say vehicle hit pedestrian. Well, no, actually a driver hit the pedestrian. So really thinking about how we talk about crashes and making this about people and not about inanimate objects.
Yeah, exactly. That humanizing factor of this. Like we said, it's every person, every fatality that's up there is someone who had loved ones who are missing them. And along those lines, Gina from the MPO entered a thought in the chat about forming a local Families for Safe Streets chapter. So these are groups that have formed in other cities, usually spearheaded by families who have lost a loved one, whether in a car crash or they were walking or biking and were killed while on the road. And these groups have been really active and have led to new legislation. And the New York City group has a very strong presence. So that's definitely something we can think about and figure out how to get that going here. And Dana followed up that she knows several people interested in forming that. And yes, a good point from Ginger, when there's a crash, there's more than one victim. Most people are not intentionally going out of their way to hit someone. So that's a very good point.
Nobody wants to hit anyone. I was talking to a fire chief. I did the Vision Zero plan in Anchorage, Alaska. And he said, anything you can do, because we're tired of picking up dead bodies off the road. And we forget the impact of our first responders. And, they have to go home with that. Mm-hmm. There's so many people impacted. It's just never the two drivers or the people that are in that crash. It just goes out so far.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I saw Matt Pleasant. He's with the school board, noted looking forward to helping and making sure parents and kids feel safe walking to school. Great. All right. Any final words from anyone? Okay. Well, feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional ideas or thoughts or want to follow up on anything. And again, we'll be reaching out very soon to get those committee meetings scheduled with you all. Take a look at that org chart that's attached to this meeting invite so you can remind yourself which committee you are tagged for. And thank you again for being here. We're really excited to get this kicked off and appreciate all of your help.
Looking forward to working with everyone.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.